evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday night prayer. Singing songs, hymns, and spiritual songs, and making melody in our hearts.
Okay.
Just talking a little bit about that tonight. And again, this is from the Global Prayer thing that I read all the time. But so we're going over and we're not going under, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on, and sometimes you think you're doing that, but that's not the case. We're going over. God has called us to go over and not under. And they were talking a little bit, and I had to laugh to myself because from this church, this guy that was talking said that he was part of the worship team, and that Lynn Hammond would say to him,
Stop.
or say to them, I don't want you singing a song that you know. I want you to sing something out of your spirit. Mm-hmm. And so I thought of Pastor and Kim, and then he went on to talk about how people, Brother Hagen with Mark Brazee, is that right? Brazee, how he would be in services with him, and I can relate to this because, and most of us probably can, but that Brother Hagen would call him out and say, you've got something, Mark, and he would say, no, I don't have anything, and Brother Hagen would say, well, come up anyway because you've got something. And he said by the time he got to the platform or whatever, that he had something. And but just talking about, they're sort of all over the place with this, but just reverencing and honoring and how God uses us. And one of the ladies was talking, and she said that she remembers God shows her some funny things when she's praying. And he had showed her that she was a sumo wrestler and how big she was in the Lord. And she said her son had sent her a picture at one time. He was involved in youth ministry, and they used to apparently have some kind of parties, and they had outfits, a sumo wrestler outfit, and they would put it on and they would wrestle, but the outfit was 5 to 6 times bigger than what they were, but that God was showing her how big she is in him. And so I sort of found that funny too. But God's putting a demand on his church.
Yes.
And this gentleman was saying, I'm taking it personally because I'm part of the church.
Yeah.
We are part of the church. And you know what it's like when somebody puts a demand on you. And I guess we're just sort of talking about that. Talking about going on a mission trip as well. That this lady and a friend of hers went to Brussels on a mission trip, and they had an interpreter. And the interpreter was interpreting and whatnot, and she, all of a sudden, he went on the floor. And so she had no interpreter. He was slain out. And just how God was moving in that service. And she said, we knew nothing. We were filled with the Holy Ghost, but she said, other than that, God just moved in that place. And but again, talking about the demand that God is calling us to go out. And it's let the river flow. There's a river that is on the inside of us, and that's what he's demanding of us, to let that river flow. Another thing that she talked about was how big God had shown her something else about being a football player, and how, you know, those football players are all dressed in their attire, and he showed her that as another of how big she is in God, and how God is big in her. And then I guess the other one I was reading about was Azusa Street, and how people that were normal, everyday people. Some of them were young, some of them were teenagers. Seymour was blind in one eye, he was black. And on the train that he went to, that God had told him to go to meet with those two ladies that had been praying, those two older ladies, he was not allowed as a black person to go on the train at night. But he did get on that train because God had told him to go. And just how God used him by putting he put the box on, but every time he spoke and said, sing in the Spirit, how the glory of the Shekinah glory would fall, they said in that place. But people would be in the back, and so the Shekinah glory spread to the back, and it was so off the floor that people actually laid underneath that glory. They went back and laid down so that they would be in the glory, and how people arms and legs grew and whatnot. So we were just talking about how God is putting the demand on the church, and he's wanting us to pray and to seek his face for revival. And anyway, that's all I have. I don't have a lot tonight. I almost did call Pastor and ask him if he would do it. I searched from morning, and that's all that really spoke to me was that stuff. But just that we seek the Lord and we do what he wants us to do.
Yeah.